Hello once again. Allah Apa. The Baha'i greetings to all the people of the planet. Time is 11:43. This is Christmas night, 23rd tomorrow. If I'm not wrong about the date, long time ago in US, a great man that remind me Christmas of the first president of the United States of America, a man that I will be speaking about. He right on the midnight with his few soldiers that was left, he crossed Delaware, the river of Delaware, on the other side, and basically conquered that German regiment that they were working for the British. That was the serious defeat to the British. But he did it on the Christmas night. George Washington. Anyways, we haven't got to that topic yet. Soon we will. So, continuing my topic, I did talk about Muslim scholars on the revelation of the Bab. Last time I spoke the scholars, few of the Western scholars, shall we call them academic scholars, about Dennis McCoy, seriously unfair, maybe academic but very unfair account about the Baha'i faith that man has. We spoke about that, and tonight I'm going to give you some idea about the Baha'i scholars to see what have they done when it reaches to the writing of the Bab. Just about everybody, when they come to the writing of the Bab, they sled. Their foot slept away. For many reasons. Basically because all this writing all in the form of manuscript. The manuscripts are not very easy to read. Some of them are bad handwriting. Many of them, or almost all of them, are different from each other. What's available to the public is nothing but photocopies. Not a proper scanning even of them is made. And they're all restricted in the hand of the Babis and the Baha'is in Israel. Babis I don't know where. So nobody has. This is very difficult. Now you say the Baha'is, they do have access to all of these things. But they even make mistakes about it. A lot of them. The most major reason for this is that Bab himself, as the manifestation of God, has created a revelation which is transitional, which is in a sketch of a reality called Baha'i faith. For example, the book of Bayan is in a sketch, like an artist writes a sketch of a portrait. So it's all a sketchy. That's what it is. Most of it purposely is incomplete. All of it for one single purpose, that nobody could use his revelation against Baha'u'llah, which is his own coming back. We will get to that in detail. But let me bring a few names. How about Abdu'l Golpaygani? This man is definitely one of the major scholars in the Baha'i faith. By evidences in the writing, he is the number one. Although I like to say Khavari, the one recent contemporary to us, is the greatest. But yet Abdu'l has not written as many books. But when he writes book, watch out, because it's amazingly accurate, very intensive, and extremely scientific, logical documentation. Great scholar, there's no doubt. But even he made mistakes. The Bab in a book called Dala'il al-Sab'a, the Seven Proofs, he mentions the major prophets of God. And we know as a Baha'i there are Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. These are the prophets. They had independent prophet, major prophet. They had their own religion. We all know David, the Psalms of David. He is definitely comes after Moses. And he's not a major prophet of God. He's a promulgator of it. Promulgated the religion of Moses. Bab in several areas, not just in this book, I have found it in several areas. He talks about a prophet with the same book as the Psalms, that this prophet is, believe it or not, before Moses. Well, what are you going to do about this? Bob says it. This isn't David who came before Moses. Now we all know David came after Moses. So few people have tried to find some solutions. If you go on the Baha'i sites, Baha'is have confessed that Bab has made a mistake. They have made a new book, typed as well as written, a new copy. It's on the internet, where they have changed the name of Moses into Jesus. Jesus who came after it, they said. Moses. So they basically corrected the writing of the Bab because they have no other idea what to do. Baha'u'llah says, well, this is the decision of the God who wanted to say this. You all have to respect it. There is certain wisdom and reason in it. But it doesn't tell us what the wisdom is. Abdu'l decided that to find a solution for this. And he thought probably the David before Moses should be the Zoroastrianism. This religion, or Zoroaster, is not a Semitic, like Adam and Noah and Moses. He's a Persian, Iranian, I should say Aryan, prophet of God, in ancient Iran. So followers of Zoroaster are still there. You can find them in India, and their holy book is called Avesta. The matter was taken to Shoghi Effendi. Shoghi Effendi says, no, that is not correct. So you're wondering, even Abdu'l was trapped. I'm going to say something with trepidations though, because I might be even wrong. And look, I'm an elder of God, supposed to be able to know the meaning. Well, sometimes for sure I know. This one, I don't want to fall in a trap, because Bob do that to you. Watch out. In the case of Baha'u'llah, you're watching a television and you know what's on the top, operated is easy. In the case of Baha'u'llah, it's like that. In the case of Bob, you have to go to see what is behind TV. You're touching the wiring, I tell you. You got to be seriously inspired by God, permitted by God. God has to confirm you in what you're saying, or else you could be saying something and later on, you would be wrong. I personally think that Bob has purposely said a lot of things like that. If I bring it to you, you will be amazed. Clear differences. He gives 2 different birth dates about the same Imam in the same book. He does. In 2 different books, he refers to 14 of his 10 books writing, I don't know the number exactly, but both of them contain same amount. Well, it can't be. One of these books has to be written before the other one, so it should contain one less. But he says in both books, Sahife Razaviya and Sahife Ja'fariya, he mentions about his writings. In both books, they're equal in number. So you're wondering, both books were not revealed at the same time. One was before the other one. So one should have less. It's not. So he's creating a lot of puzzles, allegories, parables, just like Jesus in the Bible. You know, I read, I think Ezekiel, he says that he speaks nothing but parable. Bob creates his parables. In my opinion, these obstacles are purposely made to make you to think. And then when you get tired, you have 2 choices. You have to say, Bob is wrong, then you have no faith, and the faith of the prophets in the past who prophesied about his coming. Or there's no other refuge but to go to Baha'u'llah and to Baha'i faith. Because in the book of Bayan says, these books, Bayan, which means the book and the entire books, nobody knows it is the meaning of it, except for Baha'u'llah and the letters of the living, and whoever God permits him to do. Am I one of them? We'll see. I guess future people will judge me. I think he purposely has put these obstacles so they have no way to be able to follow his religion. Anywhere that you want to say I'm a Bobby, you would be confronted with a lot of Dennis McCoyns who will come and laugh at you. So you will end up abandoning it. And that's what his purpose was. Because he's not a writer, he's a revealer, but he's also a transformer. He's transforming, you know, mankind from one phase to another. He's a doctor. Okay? He's one of them, for example. Next huge one is Mr. Fazil Mazandarani. Oh, this one is another huge historian as well as a great writer. He's hands of the cause of God. He's big, huge. Definitely, I have a lot of reverence, a lot of respect for his originality and the work and everything else. But he also makes mistakes when it comes to Bob. For example, his books, he put certain part of a tablet that I have seen. He says this is a part of the book called Sahife A'mal Sana, which is the epistle of the ordinance, annual ordinance, epistle of the annual ordinances. And he says that is in that book. It's not. We have the copy of the A'mal Sana, although chapter 13 is missing. So I put it in the book and said, well, you know, with respect to him, we'll do it. But it does not look like the rest of the book. So it can't be really, honestly. And he has other things, you know. He says that the mistakes are there when it comes to the huge stuff. Even about the 5 elders. He mentions in his books that they are this and that and that. And Ishraq Khavari, which is another huge one, this one, in my opinion, is the greatest of them all. He defies that. He refutes it and he says, no, the 5s are something else. But even him has made mistakes. For example, you know, he says the verses in the chapter of Joseph, the verses are in chapter, every chapter is 40. And he says it equals to the letter Li. Li in Arabic means for me. And that's a part of the verses of Quran, because El and I means 40. The part of the verse in Quran that says, for me they were prostrating. The word for me is L-I, Li, meaning mathematically 40. L is 30, I is 10, 40. So chapters are 40. And then others are saying 42, rightfully, because in the beginning there's a heading and also a verse from Quran, because he every verse of Quran became a chapter. So 40, if you exclude the heading and the verse of Quran, 42 if you include those. But in all the cases, I have several times counted this. They're not 40 or 42. They range from 36 to 43, excluding the two. So 38, if you want to include the first two verses, it comes anywhere from 38 to 45. For my best account that I remember. I did them several times. All of them variants. So, didn't they go read it, count it, to say it's not like that? Mm-hmm. Everyone. There's a book I had here, I think, I forgot to bring this book here. What is this book? Oh, Resurrection and Renewal. I showed this book to you before. This is Abbas Amanat. This fellow is a big guy too, but he's one of those pissed off Baha'is. He says he loves Bob. The whole book is basically history of some sort of the Baha'i faith. Many people refuted it for a lot of things. So this guy claimed, anyways, he's one of the people, is known to be one of the people that can speak about the Baha'i faith, at least about Babi faith, religion of the Bab. There's a big lengthy book here. What was this? That when he talks about the Bab, the gentleman now I have to refer to the page that I wrote this, because these are serious charges. You're talking about these people, they don't believe you otherwise. Alright, it is 203, page 203. Yeah. I've underlined two words. The word says M-A-L-I-K, Malek, Al-Malek, and the bottom one is M-U-L-K, Mulk. Let's see if you could see it. So, Abbas Amanat, a huge professor, for those who do not know, he goes to explain the chapter of Joseph, the one we were talking about. The first chapter is called Suratul Mulk, the chapter of Mulk, which is the bottom line, M-U-L-K. But he says, in this opening chapter entitled Al-Malik, within the bracket, the king, because Persian, when they write, or Arabic, when they write Mulk and Malek, it looks exactly the same, because we do not, for most parts, we do not put the vowels. So when we say Mulk, we mean M-L-K. The O after M is just a little sun on the top of M to say M sounds O. And Malek is the same way. In the M there's a little dash, and in the L there's a dash underneath to say it's not Mulk, it's Malek. But when you look at the books, even printed book, in this case he was probably looking at the manuscript, because this book is not printed yet. So he says the chapter is called Al-Malek, It's a laugh stock of anybody who has ever known anything about the revelation of the Bab. If the gentleman, Mr. Amanat, have ever would set aside, okay, his big nose that he has, I would have referred to one of the greatest, never mind a prophet, never mind a divan, definitely the greatest ever existed, Shoghi Effendi's translation of Arabic and Persian into English. I guarantee you people, there is nothing like him. Nobody. Ask anybody, they can tell you that. He, on the book Downbreaker, which is a translation of the history of the Baha'i faith, at the page 61, in that book, he'll tell you this is called the chapter of Mulk, not Malik. Because Mulk means house, property, material. Malik means king. But you write a book this thick about the Bab, and you go and waste a pen and pencil in your time to write down few pages what the book is, and you don't know even the first chapter. You feel probably annoyed by me right now, but what can I tell you? I still respect you, but I'll tell you, this is to me a sloppy. This is Abbas Amanat, who is not a registered Baha'i, but he says he loves Bab. List goes on, brother. One of the most recent one. Now this fellow I definitely respect. I definitely believe. He's really, really good. He has written a book called Hazrat Bab. The Bab. Thick book. And one about Tahira too. His name is Dr. Nasratullah, I think, Muhammad Husseini. As I said, he's pretty good. He has my respect. I told you before, sometimes you don't know what we're saying. There's a Dennis McCoy in all of us. See what he says. You know, this is not even reference to the Baha'i religion. This is Baha'i faith. This is his book. Now in here, let's see, reference page 22. I read the whole book. I'm not saying Persian, then I translate it for you. Starting from page 22 goes to 23. 23 goes to 20. How is this book down? Yeah, 23 goes to 24. He goes در بداعت و جذابیت و عظمت محتوای کتاب احسن القصص همین بس که جمال ابها با زیارت صفحاتی چند از آن صحیفه نورا بیدرنگ ایمان خیش را به امر جدید اظهار فرمود. As Persian they say, with the respect, Zeki. Now, let's translate first. He says, in the beauty and attractiveness and the grandeur of the content of the book of Ahsan al-Qasas, which is the chapter of Joseph, this is enough that when Baha'u'llah looked at few pages of this splendid book, immediately confessed his faith to the new cause. Baha'u'llah became a believer of the Bab? Is that what he says? Didn't Baha'u'llah know who Bab is? Bab says he's in tablet. He's my master. And the most ancient school, he says. He taught me. that's what Baha'u'llah is to Bab. He calls him the master of universe. Unless these things are a joke for you, but it's not for me. I know for a fact. To speak of Baha'u'llah, I don't know. Everything has become casual nowadays. When one of the letters of the living, he asked Bob, can I ask you about he whom God shall make manifest? Bob says, if you were not letters of the living, I would have punished you for even bringing the topic. That secret was to him. Does Mr. Hosseini knows this? Then he says that Baha'u'llah became a believer to the Bab. Well, then it is much like what Dennis McCoy says, that Baha'u'llah was an early convert to the religion of the Bab. Isn't this the same thing? Isn't this another hidden Dennis McCoy in us? I absolutely tell you that Mr. Hosseini, I know for a fact, he's definitely a sincere Baha'i, a great scholar. But yet, this comes right out from somewhere. That's really, really questionable. He has many other things. In this book I have marked many things, about him. So he goes to explain the book of Bayan, about what grave means, the context of the Islamic and Christians, that the day of resurrection people will speed out of their grave. What he says is not the content of the book at all. He says something which is not untrue, but is not referring to that, what Bob says. He didn't get exactly what the idea of the grave means in the Baha'i faith as opposed to the Baha'i faith. There are differences. It's just the way it goes. Every dispensation comes, doesn't just revoke and cancel the laws of the previous one, but shows the expressions and some of the ideas of the previous religion gets cancelled. For example, in Islam and in the Baha'i religion, we have the existence of a being called jinn. You say genie in the bottle. In Islam, clearly it talks about jinns. One of them is called Za'far. Imam has seen him. There was hadith about it. But Bob mentioned that too. In the Baha'i faith, we don't accept this. There's no such things. Jinn comes from janin. Janin means the fetus. Jinn means who is not have become human yet. Those who are in the fetus stage, they're in the womb. Those people. It's the meaning of genie or jinn in the Baha'i faith. It's not so in the Baha'i faith. So this is one of the ideas that's absolutely changed. Bob says that according to understanding of the people at the time, so was Muhammad, but not in the Baha'i faith, it's different. So that's Nusratullah Husseini. This goes on. Now this one is pretty strange. Shapur Rasikh is one of the outside reader of the Universal Laws of Justice. When you want to print a book, in Persian at least I know, I did it in 1993. Or was 1993. I sent the book containing two Masnavi, two Universal Laws of Justice, late Mr. Hushmand Fateh Azam, my favorite man in the Universal Laws of Justice. He said, Dear Abbas, these are too big for me, beyond my head. Why don't you send it to these people? Let them see it and judge it, and then you go and print it. So one of them was Dr. Ali Akbar Tawana. I sent it to him. He said, oh, you are like Return of Mawlavi, Return of Rumi. And he really liked my poetry. And then there's another guy, I think Mr. Darakhshan or Darakhshani in Chicago. But there was a third one in Switzerland at that time, Shapur Rasikh, I don't know if he's alive or not yet. So we had to look at my book and give his opinion. His opinion, I have it, Esther. It says that you have in your writing creates a simile to Baha'u'llah, called Baha'u'llah Arusullah. Arus in Persian or Arabic, it is bride, bride of God. He says Baha'u'llah is not bride of God, you know. And then it's funny because my writing on the top says Tahire. It doesn't say Baha'u'llah. The very title, it says Tahire, and they know it's a woman. It's a letter of living, a letter of God. Tahire Qurratulain. I said, oh my God, this Mr. Shapur Rasikh has not even seen the title that I'm saying Arusullah to Tahire, which is a woman, not to Baha'u'llah. These guys, they have such a prejudgment in them that it's a disease of their spirituality. When you become a spiritual, you get a lot of disease. Comes right out of you. Believe me, I am not immune. I do not even claim that, okay? I am probably the least and the worst of all the people. I don't care. Bad or good, whatever hell I am. But I knew there's something wrong with this man. It's going to show up. I happened to see someday this book. It's a magazine. It comes, I think, every 3-4 months. It's called خوشه‌های از خرمن ادب و هنر. You know, segment خوشه means bunch. Bunches of the hip of the literature and art. Number 4, volume number 4. What does it say in it? It's astonishing, isn't it? And he's on the universal laws of justice as a reader. If he doesn't pass your book, he's not going to get printed. Very simple, I'm talking. Better reference to the Persian book. Okay, page 38. Now, he has written very extensive. It says an introduction to the styles of the writing of the Baha'u'llah. Huge. Let's see. This is the beginning of it. And then it goes, page 38. It says اول تحول از شیوه های مشابه سبک آثار ممتاز ادب کلاسیک فارسی به سبک مستقل و متمایز. Evolution from the style similar to the styles of the classic writings, great classic writing, Persian writing, to a new style, independent and different. You know what he says, eh? He says Baha'u'llah was following the style of the Persian writer before him, then evolved. Tahawwul means a change. Became better, evolved. And then he had a very independent style. I've marked it in red. Let Persian see it, okay? Then he goes on page 48. He says in Persian در میان آثار حضرت بهاءالله که در خور مقایسه با منشعات قائم مقام است و فقط به مناسبت لحن جلال و هیمنه از آن متمایز می شود، مکتوبی است معروف به لوح شکرشکن. He is really out of his mind. He says within the writing of Baha'u'llah that could be compared. Now he's trying to compare the writing of Baha'u'llah with Mansha'at, name of a book, composition Mansha'at, of Qa'im Maqam, the name of a person, و فقط به مناسبت لحن جلال و هیمنه از آن متمایز می شود. Its only difference with it, he says, is that it has a theme, a glorious theme and a powerful theme. Otherwise it's the same, he says. The only way that it says متمایز می شود, be differentiated. مکتوبی است معروف به لوح شکرشکن. Is a writing of Baha'u'llah called لوح شکرشکن. He is comparing the writing of Baha'u'llah to the composition of the Qa'im Maqam, and he says the real difference is only that Baha'u'llah has a tone of glory and power in it. The content and everything else probably according to him is the same. Yeah, right here. Now, let's read Kitab Aqdas. Let's see what is Baha'u'llah saying about this. Paragraph number 99. Say, O leader of religion, weigh not the book of God with such a standard and sciences as are current amongst you. One more time. Say, O leaders of religion, weigh not the book of God with such a standard and sciences as are current amongst you. The word weigh, which is a translation of universal laws of justice, in Persian it uses the words qiyas, which means exactly to compare. Compare not the book of God with such a standard and sciences as are current amongst you. For the book itself is an unerring balance established amongst men. If this is the order, why is Mr. Shapur Rasikh trying to compare the writing of Baha'u'llah with composition of Mr. Qa'im Maqam? And then has the audacity or ignorance to say the only difference is that Baha'u'llah speaks, with the tone of glory. And then say Baha'u'llah before. He was talking like other Persian writers. Then he became independent. He's talking, Baha'u'llah undergoes evolution of thought, of mind. This is a classic mistakes that the agnostics, people like Dennis McCoy like to make. But in the Baha'i faith, it is clear that a prophet of God, when he is born, he is a prophet. That's why Baha'u'llah refers to the verses of the Quran that says when Jesus born spoke the word of God, meaning he was carrying the word of God even as he was a child. The second verse in Kitab Aqdas, paragraph number 165, measure not the book of God with your selfish desires. This verily is the counsel of God aforetime and hereafter. This is what Kitab Aqdas says. And that's Shapur Rasakh is doing. And this man, imagine how many poor people would write books, and he's one of the readers. And I'm not objecting to universal laws of justice here, guys, because most of them are English, a couple of them are speaking Persians. One of them learned English good, that, who's his name? Died. Taherzadeh. After he fought with me, he died. And he has made mistakes. He, in his translation, a lot of mistakes. I brought that before. So, why then universal laws of justice is not working? Isn't this machine supposed to be infallible? Yes, if it is assembled properly and put together properly. It needs the institution of guardianship beside it. Without it, it's not universal laws of justice. It's representative of those who think they are following Baha'i faith. Ideologically, it's out of order. So, this is Shapur Rasakh. Let's go to Abdu'l Afnan. This, I just ordered this book. The book was on the Baha'i website. They got it out for many reasons that I know. But look at this book right now. This is a fantastic book. Don't make mistakes. Ooh, there's lots of information here. Lots of information here. But to tell you what's going on, in this book, page 460, 455, 450, 460. Okay. It says, number 3, کتاب الواحد مجموعه 19 توقیع است که 18 فقره آنها به ازاز هر یک از حروف حی نازل شده است. Number 3 is Kitab al-Wahid, the book of Wahid, containing 19 توقیع sections, 18 of which is revealed to the honor of every one of the letters of the living. Right here, people, where my finger is, well, I respect these guys. I thought, good. Let me see. I go to the Bayani site. I found that there is a book of Al-Wahid. Oh, Kitab al-Wahid is here. And the Bayanis, Azalis, have contributed and attributed the book to Azal. I said, well, this is another thing they do. The page 48 was not in that book, missing. I needed to get it. I made an investigation. It was a copy somewhere in the Library of Congress. I traveled all the way to there, found this Persian man, have his email. We went there, we found Kitab al-Wahid, page 48. I got a diskette, bought it, USB, and we got the book scanned. I brought it, put page 48 in there. I said, now since the book is complete, I'm going to have to read it. I started to read. What do I find? In the page 8, this is on the internet. I hope it's clear. He says, فَقَدْ أَجْرِيَ اللَّهُ أَمْرِهِ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ نُقْطَةَ الْأُولَى إِلَى أَنْ غَزَى عَلَيْهِ أَمْرِهِ وَرَجَعَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِلِحْيَةٍ مخضبة بالصار وجسد عريان فوق التراب بناها الله بما غزا وعنده كتاب عجيب. Thus happened the cause, his cause. Thus happened. Addicted the God his order on his own self, which is the Bab, Nuqtat al-Ula, the primal will, until the order was completed and he died with his beard, face full of blood, color, died with blood, and the body naked on the ground. The book says that the Bab died. This book cannot be from the Bab then. If in the book says that God's verdict took over under the primal will, and with the face died with the blood on the ground. This book cannot be from Bab. So far as this verse is, there are some writing like that Azalis, they mixed part of their own with others. We have book attributed to the sister of Baha'u'llah, who couldn't read and write, but yet he's written this book, a strange book. It's just somebody else who wrote it and just her signature on the bottom. They've done a lot of that. This is another case. Now, Abul Qasim Afnan, again, is a top-notch. He would have a lot of original copy of the writing of the Bab because he's a relative of the Bab. And probably his father had seen the Bab, you know. He's an old man even right now. Remember, this religion was about 150 years ago. If he's 70, his dad probably had seen Baha'u'llah, Bab, everything. He says he saw Shobi Effendi. So there's no doubt about him again, and his book has been a guidance to me in many, many places. But I'm just trying to say that it's a murky area when we go talk about Bab. Everybody can make mistakes, including me, but I'm saying this is why I'm quoting the things exactly from where I find them, and you go see it for yourself. And I'm going to finally bring this before I get to the other one. Now, Universal Laws of Justice Research Department, these guys, everything they do is writings. I'm sure they get paid something, but still, for their effort in such a level, and now they're not working merely for money, because if they wanted to work in private sector, they would get a lot more than this, a lot more. But as they work as volunteers. Now, these are the 2 pages. I've made a line on them, you see. If you look, the page 26 and 27, they are repeating one line, that is one verse, twice. If I put it together, you could see it exactly now. See these 3 lines? Are a repeat. You may say, okay, for sure, there must be a reason. Well, we looked at one of the IMBA, contains this one, I think 3rd. And it's a copy of the Mullah Hussein of Boshroviyeh, which was the letter of the living. In there is, when you look at the first chapter, Surah Al-Mulk, you don't see the repeat of this verse twice. Funny, neither in the translation of it by Adib Taharzadeh, he is now also repeating twice the same verse. And the beginning of this book says, this book with the order of Universal Laws of Justice and Research Department after blah 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 is made. So careful in the writing. There you go. Even they're falling into the ditch. Now, these things are important for me to say that. I really dislike to bring it up. But I'm a man of honesty, and I'm a man of frankness. Shoghi Effendi says, be frank, say the word, be polite. I am in certain areas. But what is the point that we come and use some kind of politics? A lot of you guys hearing that it says I'm the enemy of the faith because I'm embarrassing everybody. I'm not embarrassing. Anything about the faith of God, anything that's truth is the word of God. Anytime, every time has to be used. Do not use politics in religion. Say the truth, whatever it is. It has been said many times, quotation from Baha'u'llah, about the truth, what Muhammad says, Al-Haqqul Mur. The truth is bitter. So, bitter it is. But my main problem, dear people, is this book. I have read the book so badly, I think. I'll tell you what happened about this book. Okay. The book is Gate of the Heart, Understanding the Writing of the Bab by Nader Saidi. I went to, on the YouTube, I found some of his talks. This book supposed to make you to understand the writing of the Bab. The gate to the heart. A gate that is locked with such a huge lock. Try to unlock that gate and getting into. This book, I'm not going to let go of it, because this Nader Saidi, which again is the greatest scholars, there's no doubt, he has botched this research. It's a botch up. I'm going to have to bring all the things he has said in these books about the writing of the Bab, about the concept that he has created, and has written it, unfortunately, in the same style of Dennis McCoy. But he has criticized him in a few places. So this is going to probably take me 3-4 videos to bring all the topic he has said here, because I'm going to have to speak to him authentically. He's a big, huge professor in the university of a state somewhere. You know, see. For now, I'm just going to outline at least 7. Not confining to, but 7, not limited to. The number one problem with this book is that it has such a high vocabulary that for every page, poor me had to go to the dictionary 3, 4, sometimes 5 times to find the damn words. Basically, stupefy the reader of even understanding his books. There's a fellow, his name is Fuad. Good Baha'i, young fellow, who was talking to one of my students. And he was saying to Ali that, there's a book written called The Gate to the Hearts. It is so deep, so profound, No one can read it. It's such a high English. I said, is this how he said, yeah, it's so difficult he couldn't read it. I said, too bad. So I had to spend, they want a huge money for this. Somehow I found this, I think, say $60, $80 someplace. I ordered it through Amazon and got it and carefully read from bottom to the top. I found that his English is so far away from the reach of any ordinary person. And a lot of it is wrong. For example, use hermeneutics for the interpretation. Interpretations of the Bab is not hermeneutic at all. Hermeneutic has certain principles. It's all over, everyone knows it. In different aspects, biblical or philosophical. Interpretation of the Bab is not even like the interpretations of the other Muslims. Bab is not seeking the same goal as any other interpreter, especially the hermeneutic one. But what kind of a word is hermeneutic, for the interpreter? And so on. I couldn't find it, to be honest with you. Stupefied, eh? So, at least he could have, like I do, when I printed this book of Bab, pretty soon it's going to come Kitab al-Bayan, there are a lot of hard words. So, immediately I open a bracket, in front of the word, within the bracket, I say the word. So that people don't have to go at the end of the paragraph or the end of the book or refer to some dictionary to find the book, but just throw the book away like that. Let's just say right there what the meaning is, and they pass it. If they want to look at it, those who want it. Those who don't, doesn't matter. So he could have done number one. Number two problem is that he has a lot of mistakes in interpretations. Now I'm going to have to detail talk about him because he's going to laugh at me and says, ha 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 ha. We'll see. About, for example, the chapter in Quran called Wal Asr. Swear to time. He has translated the chapters called afternoon. No Muslim translator into English have written Wal Asr to be afternoon. English people, including Dennis McCoy, have done that. Looking at it very, very superficially. I'm going to speak about that later on. For example, Abdu'l, it says family of God. Because all means family, not exactly family, it means tribe, to be tribe of God, not family of God. Why? Because this Abdu'l is the term that Bab uses. Specifically for the successors of Muhammad, which were 12 of them. They are called Abdu'l. Translation of Shoghi Effendi is Immaculate Essence. Okay. The infallible Imams. But he goes superficially, all says his family, Allah is God, family of God. Well, all is not really family, it's a tribe of God. Wrong translation, not authenticated. We're going to discuss this with the standard of Shoghi Effendi. And so this is number two. Number three, now this one is bad, seriously bad, Mr. Nader Quli, I call you. You are a real Quli. I know you're probably more faithful than me. Because I don't understand faith, okay? I'm the man of questions. I stand in front of God and I ask him questions. And I have to be convinced. I don't leave him because I'm not convinced. But I keep asking till I get convinced. And if I don't understand it, I go back to him, sir, I don't understand. I don't let it go, okay? I have to know if I have to know. What you have done here is this in number three. You're actually comparing the writing of the Bab, the philosophy, which there's no philosophy in the writing of the Bab really, that word again is irrelevant. Philosophy as we know it's a continental philosophy of the Europe. The writing of the Bab is not on philosophy. Abdu'l says you change the names and call it true philosophy, something that does not mean that philosophy. But you're saying the content of the writing of the Bab, you compared it with Immanuel Kant. Haven't you had any guides? There you're thanking Mr. Allame Husseini and others. Did you ever tell them that you're comparing the writing of the Bab with Immanuel Kant? But he himself says few things that are strange as well. And then, if Shapur Rasekh and others are with you, I guess you guys can't compare it. But Bab says severe mistake if you do that. Baha'u'llah and Kitab Aqdas says seriously do not do it. You have said some places, You say, the writing of the Bab, the way Bab says that, if I want to bring the meaning of some word of God, it is infinite meaning. It seems far-fetched, isn't it? How could some word to have so many meanings, so many significance to it? It has. Do you know why? I'll give you a simple reason. You have not disagreed with it, but you say it without explanations, for example. Well, the writing of a person, the creator of that person, is as deep as himself. It can't be deeper than he himself, because this is branching out of him. This book cannot be deeper than Mr. Husseini himself, because the book comes out of him. He is limited. As to his limit, this book is also a limit. There's a limited meaning in this. It's representing him, a limited being, a creature. This is another creator of another creator, who is a creature himself. The writing of Baha'u'llah on the Bab is from God. To know why they said that, then we have to know what's in the mind of God. He is infinite. Perhaps what he makes is just as infinite. Not just his word here. Everything that God has created, that sign of infinity is in it. What do we know about things? It is big enough that Baha'u'llah, the manifestation of God, the will of God, not God, but the will of God, says, I do not know. That quintessence of everything. Everything is a quintessence. Baha'u'llah says all the prophets, including himself, they do not know. They confess in their incapacity to comprehend. That's in the Book of Certitude. This is why. 10 years old child writes something, well, this is as deep as the 10 years old could be. Einstein says something, well, as deep as the Einstein could be in the physics. God says something, as deep as God. God is infinite, therefore. That's why we didn't explain those things anyways. So this is really atrocious, really transgression, to compare the writing of the Bab to that of the Immanuel Kant. We are Euclidean, Mr. Saidi. We are geometrical. God is non-Euclidean. There is no triangle in nature. There is no perfect circle. There is nothing of geometry that we have in the nature. There is no two shapes the same in the nature. How could we compare that? If we can compare the driver of a car with the car, then you can compare the word of Bab with that of the Immanuel Kant. I don't want to say his name the way Persians say it. Number 4 objection to you. I'm not going to let you go simple, okay? Because I sent you an email and I asked you, the book is botched. You can call me and talk to me. It has to be redone. But I'm going to bring it up right down. The YouTubes, everyone has to know, okay? Because they might fall into your trap. The biggest trap is they thinking this book is anything. It's not. It's nothing. You haven't even scratched the surface of anything. What you have not understood is that the religion of Bab is transitional. It can never be studied on its own. It has to be studied in conjunction with the writing of Baha'u'llah. He says, my word could be understood only by Baha'u'llah in the book of Bayan. How then could we go and read something that's not possible? Okay? These are mistakes that you have done. Number 5, which is the biggest one of all, really. Somehow at the end of the book, you finally bring up Baha'u'llah and the promised one of the book of Bayan, he whom God shall make manifest. Talk to a lot of people if you don't want. This topic will have to be start at the beginning of the book. But you let go. And you brought it at the very end of the book. At the beginning of the book. Then things could have made a little bit more sense. You had to bring all the meaning of what you said about this with a quotation and a writing from Baha'u'llah's or Baha'i faith, writing to explain what Baha'u'llah says in reference to the Bab. Without it, you're going into the realm of the interpretation, something you're not supposed to do. You guys are fighting with me that I'm trying to say I'm an interpreter by the virtue of calling myself an elder, which God has called me an elder. But you guys are all interpreting the Word of God any which way you want. But don't call it interpretation. But yet you're doing it. So that's another big one to me. Most of all, you haven't explained few very, very fundamental things in the book. You read it on the Wahid, the first Wahid. It talks about the return of Imam Hussein as to be one of his letters of the living, one of his disciples. But then we know Imam Hussein will be returned in the form of Baha'u'llah. How are you explaining this? Hussein is one of the letters of the living inferior to Bab, and then Hussein is superior to Bab. Twice he's coming. Twice return Imam Hussein. This is something Baha'is they could encounter. What about that 4 representative of Imam, which in Baha'i faith outright is refuted? I don't accept it. But Bab speaks, the first one, second one, the third one, or the fourth one has returned. How do you explain that? I'm going to now, because you brought it up. It's the 7th one, and then I'm going to shut down this talk. You have objected rightfully to some of the Dennis McCoy, but it sounds to me you're subservient, suck up to him. You're afraid of pointing at the things that he says. You say, oh yeah, he says that the tafsir, the Ahsan al-Ghassas, the interpretations of the chapter of Joseph was not done in such period it was more, took a year and this and that, and you're trying to bring to that. But this belligerent man has said a lot of other things about the Pope. He says Bob recanted and repented. Have you addressed that one? He says Bob is obsessed. Crazy he says he is. He says Bob doesn't know what he says. He doesn't understand even what he says. He has no idea even what is he prophesizing. What do I say to you? Either you didn't want to, then you agreed with those objections of him and just answered what you wanted. That means when you agree with others, or you've omitted and not even studied what the goddamn guy says to bring it in your book about understanding the writing of the Bab, at least to get this snake that his book is being taught in the universities as a man in charge of the writing of the Bab. So, what are you? A man of vocabulary? Sure, your vocabulary stupefies everybody. Is that what you want, that the people read, get your book and say, boo, we can't get into it, it's too big for us? What, lexiconist are you? What about the content? Your contents are lame. There are few good points, no doubt, I have seen it. But that's only a couple of pages. The rest of the book is a botch-up. And you are Baha'i, I have no doubt, but you do have lingering questions in your mind about Baha'u'llah, I know, and about Baha'i faith. Many of you have it inside you. Dig down to see what the hell is that. You're so reluctant to talk about Baha'u'llah in the book. It seems you're evolving to understand it later on. Do you know what this happens? What is the mechanism? I've spoken about the mechanism of a covenant breaker. Do you want me to talk to you about a mechanism, how people turn into you, or Mahnaz Rohani, or Mr. Dostar, and a bunch of other guys? They are in the, I've read their points in the Negah and other places. In Pajweshnama, you had something good about Sheikh Ahmad Asai, but you didn't get to the bottom line of that point anyways. It was just a repetition of what was there, regurgitations basically. The problem is this, Mr. Saidi. What does Baha'u'llah says in the Book of Certitude in the very beginning? He says, you have to cleanse yourself from 4 channels. What you've heard, what you see, what you think, what you feel. There are 4 channels. If they're not cleansed, contaminated with many installations and downloads of the useless files that you are with no choice entertained with the Western philosophy, a full contaminated mind, now you want to go get into the writing of Bab and Baha'u'llah. That's what's going to happen. Yes, that is the problem. You haven't read Kant. You have become a Kantian, but you don't know it. And within this junkyard of millions of pieces of regurgitated ideas, hidden some of the books and the writing of Baha'u'llah. You're using your love, your desire to get it out and bring it up. It is like taking an apple, fallen into a well of feces. You put your hand in and you're bringing up the apple and you're seeing people eat it. That's what it is. The book is contaminated with so many wrong ideologies. Thanks God, Universal Laws of Justice has not approved the book. Because none of the people are out there to answer you. This is it. You've gone lost somewhere that nobody wants to get lost. For your sake, that I liked you, and I liked others, so they know what are they getting into, I had to read all of your books, all of it, and go in detail with you, because I know where you're coming from. You're worse than those Muslims that when we talk to, I gotta tell you exactly where these things that you're saying, why are they wrong? Your categorizations and your classifications, none of it works in that geometrical Euclidean mind of yours into the nature. It won't fit. It's all contaminated truth. That's what it is. That fellow, I call him a vandalism of the truth. Yours is a contaminated truth. Okay? Sorry that I'm so frank. I can't help it. I am the General of Baha'u'llah. Okay? To you, I speak very frankly. And I don't want to get into other one of you. There are too many of you. I'll take you as the guinea pig. And I'm going to dissect your mind in writing these books. Because, as I said, mister, I have typed all the 10,000 pages of the Book of Bob. When you're quoting even from the writing of the Bob, which book are you quoting from? How do you know is this the right words? According to which copy? A copy of the Azali Bayan? Allahu Akbar, may God forgive everyone, including me. And a night like this, that I had to do what I had to do. Allahu Akbar.